So I gave the rundown on this current build earlier on. But I'll give you the rundown right now, okay? Just so you kind of get a feel for what I'm currently feeling. And this is for anyone who's hasn't been in chat for 12 hours. If you know what I mean. All right, so the current build here. The idea behind the build that I'm playing here in the background is let's find a skill that doesn't hit, and then let's use Divergent Berserk with it. Divergent Berserk says that during Berserk, you gain more spell damage, and along with quality plus enhance, it gives me 36% more spell damage, which is like better than low life, which is quite good. So if you look at the orange bar on my screen above my mana, that is my rage, and as long as that's going down, I have more spell damage. As it's ticking up, that's the recharge period. So that's kind of what's going on. We wanted to build, or we wanted an ascendancy that had a bunch of cast speed, which is how we ended up with an Elementalist, because golems give a lot of cast speed. And Wintertide doesn't hit, which is kind of neat. So that was like the initial idea of the build. We've been discovering a lot about Wintertide. And the TLDR is Wintertide pulls your build in a lot of different directions. And because of that, it's hard to fit in the meme stuff on top of that. If a build does not have like much going on and it's a good skill, then that skill allows you to meme, right? It allows you to do weird stuff. But if a skill is very demanding and like it needs this and this and this and this and this, and then you also need life or ES, then it's harder to, you know, add a meme or add an additional layer on top of it. Could you do this in Trade League with a bunch of currency? Yeah, money fixes everything, just like in real life. But for me, not particularly possible. So why does the build feel bad? So Wintertide Brand is the only cold damage over time skill that scales with cast speed, which is kind of neat. It's also one of few skills that's damage over time that stacks. The Toxic Rain stacks, this thing stacks, and then I guess poisons stack, right? That's about it. Okay. So as a strain to your build, Wintertide Brand wants duration. It really wants duration to scale its single target damage. It wants cast speed so that it can get to its maximum stacks and then sit at those maximum stacks for a long time. So you need cast speed with nodes like this, or from your ascendancy, or even using faster casting support. It's a brand, so it wants you to have brand nodes here, or maybe brand nodes here. This is a insane damage node. Runesmith is quite good. Enemies take 15% increased damage. And then for me, because I'm like using golems, I need to have the golem nodes to help scale my cast speed and the rest of my build, defense, offense, everything. So when all is said and done, it really pulls you in a lot of different directions. And adding in the mana regeneration portion of it, which would be like, we're not using mana regen. We could, but we're not using mana regen. We're turning that into Chainbreaker, which is why we have mana regen on our amulet like this. And then we're even using sockets on our gear, enhance plus Divergent Berserk, in order to get that gain that kind of stuff. But instead of just having Wintertide Brand, we also have Wintertide Brand, which is cast speed, brand, cold damage over time, duration. Instead of only those four things, we also have golems, Chainbreaker, yeah, and I guess we haven't even started to talk about defense. There's no defense. It's like we have all these things that we need, but we haven't gotten to the defensive part. So, like, even if my life had 100, even if my chess piece had 120 life instead of 20 life, which we'll fix someday. Even if that were the case, like, even if I had 6.5k life instead of 6k life, I still don't have many defenses to the build. Which is kind of where it fails. Aren't golems good? Yeah, I mean, golems are good, but they're also socket intensive stuff. Dre, what's going on? It's, yeah. If you want to TLDR, it's hard to meme with Wintertide brand. I think Wintertide brand's wicked interesting. I actually like it a lot more than I thought I would. With an explodey chess piece, it kind of feels like a damage over time penance brand. Because it kind of like chains around, you know, does its damage over time component and pops. I like it. I actually like it a lot. I don't think there's room for Divergent Berserk in the build. Because one of the other ways in which this build failed is I thought Divergent Berserk was going to be good because Chainbreaker and it like doesn't hit very often. But it turns out, despite Wintertide brand not hitting, it's still an LE Equilibrium build, and it's still an LE Overload build. And to enable those two portions of the build, I still need Orb of Storms. And if Orb of Storms is on the ground, ticking over and over, which I want it to do, it's also making Chainbreaker just that much harder to maintain. Make sense? Good. So Wintertide brand is sweet. I could probably make my build better by not using Divergent Berserk. And I think if I had to play Wintertide brand again, I would what do you call it? I'd play Trickster and I'd go low life. Which, as it turns out, is one of the most popular ways to play the skill. I would try to fit in a Asenath's Gentle Touch for some Explodies, which is the only way to get Explodies on a low life character. But I do think that Trickster would be mucho más mejor, much better than an Occultist. So I don't know, like here's the thing, when I play a build, it's nice to have a takeaway, it's nice to learn stuff, it's nice to have an opinion on it that I didn't have before, because I haven't played the skill. But yeah, the fact that I think the build would be better if we ditched the initial idea and just played the skill. Well, the initial idea was to use Divergent Berserk. And if I think the best way of playing the skill is to not do the thing that I came here for, the skill is sweet, but I'd rather just play something else. So that is... That's where I'm coming from. Can I still proc Elemental Overload with traps? No. You can proc LE Equilibrium with traps. You can't proc LE Overload with traps. Because the trap would gain Elemental Overload, not you. Because the trap's the one dealing the damage. So I think that just about covers my thoughts on this. Wintertide brand's way cooler than I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure it compares to Vortex. I think Vortex is just incredibly easy to do. Because remember we talked about all those things that you want in your build? Things like cast speed, duration, brand nodes, and then cold damage over time, and then you can start worrying about defenses. Vortex is just like cold damage over time. You don't need brand stuff. You don't need duration stuff. You don't need cast speed stuff. You just get to worry about utility, right? And defenses and more damage, and you know you can fit more things in your build because you don't need to worry about those other components. But yeah, Wintertide brand worth playing, just not quite like this, in my opinion.